Hey folks, this is Kelani. With Battle for Azeroth coming out in just a few days, it's going to be an amazing opportunity to nab yourself some gold. And I'm not talking about like a few pieces of gold. If you play your cards right, you could set yourself up for an entire expansion in just the first few weeks. Expansion launches are always incredibly lucrative because everything resets. You can stockpile as many herbs and ores from Legion as you want. No one is going to want them after BFA launches. Or at least most people won't. I'm sure a few niche markets will crop up which use old expansion materials, just like always, but the real gold is going to be coming from these brand new materials. Every crafting profession is going to need them, whether it be alchemists trying to rush for those glorious rank 3 recipes for maximum efficiency, or jewel crafters wanting another load of ore to try and shuffle themselves a few rare gems. These materials are going to be flying out of your bags for a ridiculous amount of gold, so let's see what we can do to make the most of an expansion launch, and I'll clue you in onto what I plan to do to make a boatload of gold. So first things first, what professions should you start out with? I would highly recommend dropping whatever crafting profession you have right now and picking up both mining and herbalism. These two profs together will ensure you can happily play dot to dot on the map and rake in the gold as you do so. While leveling, you should mine every node you come across and pick any flowers that appear on your minimap. Double gathering has a few advantages at the start of an expansion. The first is that you actually get handfuls of experience with every node you collect, which might just make up for the lost leveling time between picking flowers and mining ore. And the second is that right at the start of an expansion is when these materials will be worth the most. Every hour that goes by, their value will decrease, and I'm not talking about 1 or 2 gold knocked off the price. These ores and herbs could start at hundreds of gold per item, and that's only going to fall, so while you're mining and herbing, I would head to an auction house every now and then to offload your current inventory. It doesn't matter if it's 47 herbs or 103 ores, I would get rid of it all for the first day or so. If you're worried about leveling up crafting later on, you can actually just buy back whatever you sold when the prices drop and get everything back with a good chunk of gold besides. Honestly, I'll be farming quite a lot for the first few days, so getting left behind on crafting stuff isn't too much of a worry. Everyone will end up getting bottlenecked when it comes to rank 3 recipes anyway, because they're all tied behind reputation grinds. I guess humans will have a head start on that, which is maybe something to consider if you really want to min-max this stuff. One thing you should look into is glove enchants. These are available right away for any enchanters in Battle for Azeroth and increase the speed of herbing, mining, skinning and crafting, but each one has their own enchant. That means you'll either have to choose between increasing the speed of herbing or mining, or just stick each enchant on a different pair of gloves and swap them around while you gather. It might sound like a really tedious thing to micromanage, but it would actually save you a lot of time. That's what I'll be doing while leveling up. I'll either buy the enchants from guildies or the auction house, or we might just pick up enchanting long enough to get the enchants, make a few and then drop it. That might be a little too much work though, even for me. If you're leveling with a group of friends or guildies, you can potentially make a lot of combined gold by all taking gathering professions. Herb and mining nodes won't disappear immediately, just like in Legion, so even if you have 3 or 4 herbalists, they should all be able to get the same herb node. The same goes for mining. I'll be leveling with my wife, as I always play with her anyways, and we'll both be rocking mining and herbing. That doubles up our profits and will make the next step even easier. For the first few hours, or perhaps the first day, depending on how quickly we can level to max, we'll both be dumping all of our herbs and ores onto the auction house to try and get the best price for our goods. After that, I'll drop mining and start keeping my herbs and also pick up inscription. I think inscription is going to be one of the best ways to make gold early on for a few reasons. The first is contracts. You might not have heard much about these contracts, they seem to be flying under the radar just a little bit, but essentially a contract will allow you to funnel reputation gains from world quests into specific factions. Not only is this going to be incredibly valuable as a scribe, but everyone will want to get their hands on these contracts when they realize how powerful they can be. Alchemists are going to want to rush their rank 3 flasks and potions as early as possible, but they're going to need reputation to do that. The fastest way to gain rep would be to pick up a contract and go to town on the world quests. Blacksmiths will want their rank 3s for the higher tiers of gear, same for tailors and leatherworkers. As a scribe, you're going to want Tortollan rep for rank 3 talent tomes, as well as the Darkman Cards. Even if you don't care about professions, there's 355 gear and unique mounts locked behind reputation grinds. The Champions of Azeroth reputation will increase your amulet by 15 item levels every time you gain a new reputation rank. Rep is going to be so important early on for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. The only way to actually increase the speed of reaching Exalted with a specific faction right now is these contracts. But from the testing I've done and the testing that my friends have done on these, each contract will last until you use another one. So if you really know what you're going for, you should only have to buy each one once. That means these could end up having a very limited shelf life, so get to them early and you should be able to make some decent gold. But that's not all a scribe will be good for. Darkman Cards have always been a fantastic moneymaker early on in the expansion, and this time around they're going to provide 355 trinkets. That's the equivalent of normal Uldir raid gear, and you won't have access to 355 gear from anywhere else besides reputation vendors and lucky titan forges for the first 3 weeks. So these trinkets should sell like hotcakes. Sometimes they end up being quite overpowered and will be valuable throughout the first raid tier, so if any of these trinkets really stand out, they could be a great gold maker for a few months to come. Darkmoon card rank 3 comes from Tortollan Seekers, so be sure to work your way towards Revered with our little turtle friends as quickly as possible. Talent Tome should also be a pretty reliable source of income for scribes. Once again, everyone needs to change talents here and there, especially during raids, so they might be a little slow at the start of an expansion, but as we start ramping up for the raids, you should see increase in demand quite significantly. Rank 3 for tomes also comes from the Tortollan Seekers, so that Tortollan contract is looking quite tasty indeed. There is another trick that might become very important as we progress through Battle for Azeroth though. You may have heard there's some new crafting materials floating around, Expulsum and Hydrocores. Well, Hydrocores come from dungeons and shouldn't really ever be in short supply as long as you're running your mythic dungeons every week, but Expulsum is unique in that you can only get it from a single source. And that would be the Scrapper. You might have heard of this new scrapping mechanic, but to put it really simply, you can throw unwanted gear into the Scrapper to get raw materials with a chance at Expulsum. Plate gear will give you ores, mail gear will give you scales and bones, leather gear will give you leather and bones, and cloth gear will give you cloth. But you can also throw in wands and staffs for enchanting materials, jewellery for gems, and other weapons for even more ore. That means there's going to be quite a variety of sources for crafting materials this time around. As more players get more and more spare gear, they'll throw more stuff into the Scrapper to try and get Expulsum, but they'll also get plenty of raw materials along with it. That's going to devalue things like ore, leather, and cloth way faster than just gathering would have alone. That's actually why I would drop mining after the first huge rush. Ores aren't going to be worth quite as much in the long run. Notice though, you cannot scrap anything to receive herbs. Herbs will retain their value for a lot longer, which would also affect things like alchemy and inscription prices. Expulsum is going to be pretty important for everyone, so everyone will be using the Scrapper. Your leveling gear, your early dungeon gear, anything you replace should get thrown into the Scrapper to get your Expulsum stocks going. At the start of the beta, Expulsum could actually come from gathering professions, but we haven't really seen any of it for a long time, so it's either a really low drop rate, everyone is just really unlucky, or it was removed from the gathering loot table. If the Scrapper is the only source of Expulsum, everyone will be using it, including enchanters. Thankfully, some of the later builds removed Expulsum as a requirement from all enchants. It's only needed to create the rare quality weapons and the follower equipment pieces. So as an enchanter, you might end up having to pick and choose between scrapping and disenchanting. Everyone is also going to want to keep their spare gear to scrap, either for extra materials or make a little bit of extra gold, so the chances of players passing loot that they don't need to a friendly enchanter is probably going to be 0. Either way, I would expect enchanting materials to stay pretty expensive for a little while, so if you don't want to hop on the inscription train, you could just DE all of your gear and sell the raw enchanting materials for a good chunk of gold. That's probably what my wife's main toon will do, so she'll end up with herbing and enchanting, and I'll be rocking herbing and inscription, obviously after we both ditch mining. If you don't want to drop your professions because you have a lot of recipes or maybe some rare recipes among your collection, leveling an alt you don't have professions you care about might be a better first step if you're wanting to take advantage of the gold available right at the start of an expansion. Remember that coming from Legion, some players have tens of millions of gold. Some of those players will be buying the 5 million auction house mount right out of the gate. Those same players will drop masses of gold on raw materials to get ahead of everyone else in the crafting game. Other players just don't want to farm up the required materials but have plenty of gold thanks to the token conversions. We've never had this much disposable gold before. If you're wanting to get your slice of the pie, here's a quick recap. Start with mining and herbing, sell everything you get as quickly as possible. When you hit max level or when the prices of ore fall far enough, drop mining for inscription and stop selling your herbs. You can probably buy up herbs cheaper than you were selling them previously, but either way work on your inscription to get contracts and Darkmoon cards flowing. Sell your goods as quickly as you can. The longer you wait, the less they're going to be worth. Stock up on your tomes for raid release and you should be able to make a big chunk of gold there too. Enchanting might be a good option thanks to the scrapper eating up everyone's spare gear, so if you don't want to deal with inscription, you might be able to make a quick buck off of enchanting materials. After the initial rush, you can go back to whatever you feel like. If you put in a good amount of effort and time right now, you might be able to make enough gold to set you up for the entire expansion. I'll let you know how I do in the first week of BFA. But that's it for this video. Do you have any plans when it comes to professions and the launch of BFA? Or will you just follow along with my strategy and hope for the best? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. If you want to hop on that train, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.